I would like to now introduce Mr. Noel Massie from UPS. We'll start originally with a video.
I am Noel Massie, and I'm the U.S. Operations Manager for UPS. It's a privilege to be here today. Quite frankly, when you talk about workforce, when you talk about where the economy or the world is going, when it comes to workforce development, I don't know what everyone that's in this room does, but if you're involved in education, if you're involved in recruitment, if you're involved in workforce development and workforce centers or programs, I don't care what you're involved in, when it comes to developing people with skills for the future, it matters. It matters a whole lot more than society assigns credit to it for. You know that because you live it, right? You fight the battle upstream. You talk about politics. I know what you talk about. You talk about the barriers. You talk about the needs and how you're going to facilitate making them happen. So if there was 4 people in this room, I'd take the time to come talk to you. It's that important. It's that important to where we end up as a country, not just as UPS. So having said that, how many careers did you see on that video of UPS? The reason I played that is, what did you see? You saw 16.1 million delivered daily. You saw 8.8 million, or you saw 39.1 million tracked daily. You saw how much of our airline on segment flights daily, 9,100 flight segments daily. What did you see there? Everything and anything to do with an economy, we do, uniquely speaking. Not to diminish any other corporation, but at Lockheed, they make airplanes. At General Motors, they make cars. That's what they do. At a water company, they provide water. At UPS, we provide and do any and everything that matters materially in an economy. We move 7% of this country's GDP. So we move 7% of this country's GDP. We move 2% of the global GDP. We move more of the global GDP than any single entity in the world, right? Because no one has a bigger share than 2% of the global GDP. So when you look at careers, you say, well, what kind of careers does UPS have, right? Typically, people see the driver, and they associate a career at UPS with being a driver. Well, they do. Or someone that's a part-timer, and we put the wood to them, right, when they got the job as a college student, and said, see if you can survive this, right? Because that's what I did. I started as a part-time college student. So I put myself through college. And my mother was happy, big time, right? Because I was able to go to work as a part-time student at UPS in 1977. And I started in the Bay Area, Oakland, California. I went to Berkeley High School, and then I went to San Jose State to be an electrical engineer. And my older brother, he's 15 months older than me, he was already there, and the same degree study, electrical engineer. And he's still one to this day, Silicon Valley. He's done quite well. Now, having said that, I was able to work at UPS, get my weekly paycheck, loading and unloading trucks for the first 3 months. Then I became a part-time supervisor in management 3 months after I started. So then it was a salary job, monthly pay. But I was able to go to work, literally, and work part-time, 4 hours a day, at night, 11 at night, to about 3 or 4 in the morning. I was able to work part-time and pay for a degree with no loans, no ask. I bought my books, I paid my own tuition, and I was able to do that. That's extinct. So I only use that story of mine as a kid that grew up in East Oakland, California, an urban community, in a single-parent household, with a mother who worked at the post office and had 4 children to raise, right? 4. So you know she's pretty dominant, right? Because she kept us in line. We still don't give her trouble, okay? So anyway, I was able to do that and grow up in East Oakland in an urban community. I was able to successfully navigate going to college and paying for my education at a time where you could afford to do that. You could do that. It was affordable. You could do that, right? So the right brick and mortar for me was when I was in school. And I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to connect that for you. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for educators, period. And I'm talking about at the most impressionable point in my life, right? And I never forgot them or that. It's become more prolific now, you know, in that I do what I do today, but I'm going to relate it. And then I want to also leave you with a few numbers to tie it in. So I want you to remember these numbers. Hopefully, well beyond today, they become important to you as people engaged in developing the workforce. Because you don't develop the workforce for you. You develop talent and knowledge and workforce for people like me. Because I have a whole lot of employees, right? We have 400,000 globally. Here in the U.S., that number is around 280,000, close to 3. And our U.S. operations, which I am the U.S. operations manager for, is 200,000 people. Okay? So you develop all of the energy you put into your work, at least if this conference is indicative of what's trending, how workforce expectations are changing. And I see you have the entertainment industry speaking, hospitality speaking, manufacturing speaking. You're going to hear from recruitment professionals. So you're developing, at least that's what I take away, people for me. I'm the customer. Do you really know what I need? If you know, it's not because you asked me. Because I can tell you that I can count on one hand the amount of folks who work in development or education who goes, hey, tell me what it is you need. How can I do what I do so you'll want the people that come from me? That's important. You got to understand that, right? Brandon, who I'm known for years and very close to, I don't know how many of you know him, our relationship germinated from that. It did. And so he says, hey, let's talk about what you need, blah, blah, blah. And so he has a cluster going on right now I think is very innovative, very breakthrough, and I think that that's really the next level of what has to happen. But I want you to remember these numbers. I'll go back to that. 7, 9, and 1. So I want you to remember the number 791. 791. 791. I don't want you to ever forget that number. I hope you use it when you go back to where it is you're going to go. There are 7 billion people on this planet today. Just a little over that, 7.3. We live in a global economy. Anyone disagree with that? That is not a global economy? Look at your 401k. Tell me if things go really badly in Greece, it doesn't affect you. Okay? If you have anything invested in a retirement plan, you need to care about what China's doing. You need to care about what happens in Europe. That's the new normal. Our children don't get to grow up in the comfort of an insulated America. Hey, we got to do that. We got to do that. We got to grow up in an insulated America where auto manufacturers ruled and they didn't have to worry about cars being produced somewhere else, like Kias or Toyotas, and who knows what's next when the first Chinese electric vehicle hits the soil. We didn't have to worry about those kinds of competitive pressure. UPSers before me didn't have to worry about competitive pressure. I've had a career where in 1977 we ruled, right? We didn't even care about how customers felt, 1977. No, I'm serious, UPS. Really. When I was a manager in the mid-'80s, customer would call up and say, hey, can you? And I'd say, let me see. Nope. Call me tomorrow. They go, okay. It was no competition. There was no competition. Listen, I didn't have to worry about FedEx going and getting it instead of me, right? I didn't. I'm being honest. I can say, hey, no, I can't pick it up today. You need to wait. You go, okay, can I be first tomorrow? Sure. But today I'm full. That's it. My drivers are full. I can't come get those 500 packages. No, I'm not kidding. You think I'm not embellishing. Today, we figured that out. Okay? We figured that out because of competition. I will tell you that today we need to figure out with 791, that we're 7 billion people on this planet. That's the 7. By 2050, it's going to be 9 billion. That's real. Google it. You need to know this. That is the growth for the next 34 years. Last year was 35. How many people a week does this planet need to add in human beings to go from 7 billion to 9 billion by 2050, which is an absolute fact that it's going to occur. It's occurring today. It's happening as you sit in this room. We add on this planet in new human beings 150,000 people a day. A day. We add 1 million new people to the world's population a week. We add 52 million people to the world's population a year. And we will do that for the next 35 years to get to 9 billion. What kind of education do you need to play there? If you have a child in your life that's 10, how are you going to help that child be successful at 30 while that phenomena is occurring? For everyone in this room, I'm a guess, I don't think anyone in here is younger than 11, right? Everybody older than 11? Okay. Right? In your lifetime, over the last decade, there was no Instagram for you. as a young person, you didn't have to care when you were in college. You didn't have to care about Twitter. You didn't have to care about communication channels that are now developing like Snapchat. You didn't have to care whether your career was impacted by any of that. It didn't matter to you. It was unimportant. You didn't have to care about Amazon. You know, Amazon for UPS is a 20-year-old company. I remember when 1995, 96, they were just a regular customer. There was nothing special about them. Our biggest clients in the late 90s were QVC, Home Shopping Network. Those were the big guys. Those were the big guys. Walmart. Nobody saw Amazon coming. They absolutely slaughtered the competition. They slaughtered them. They slaughtered their competitors because no one saw them coming. You know how come they were able to do that? Because no one saw them coming except one company. We saw them coming. Hey, listen, here's a metaphor I give on that. Dig a hole in the ground, you have a hole in the ground. It is not a swimming pool. Just go try it. Go dig a hole in the ground, see if it's a swimming pool. No, you got to turn it into one, right? You can get the best cement layer, tile guy, lay the inside, the whole deal. And then when you go to get water, they go, hey, we don't pump water to this spot. I know you got this great looking hole in the ground and it's all pretty, but this is not where we bring water. Do you have a swimming pool? No, you have a hole in the ground. Okay, Amazon's a swimming pool. UPS, we're the water. We have 1,800 buildings. We're the 8th largest airline in the world. It took us 108 years to build that out. You don't just wake up in the morning and say, let us be UPS. I don't care how much money you have. There could be a consortium of the richest men in the world, Zuckerberg, Buffett. They can all get together and go, we're starting a UPS. Okay, good luck with that. It took us 108 years and a whole lot of money in an employee-owned company where I took my money, seriously, in 1983, 1984, stock, part of my compensation and said, go buy an airplane with it. That's how we did that. Because we built it out, the owners, the management team. We invest our capital in this thing. And every year ain't been great, just so you know, right? But it's ours. We own it. And so that's allowed us to have the infrastructure to be us. And it's always a challenge. So when I talk about Amazon, they have changed the nature of things, and they matter materially as much as Facebook to this economy, right? So educations now have to play there. But I just want to level set that 1 million people a week will be the experience our children go through. My 2 sons, 20 and 22, by the time they get to where I am in life, there will be 9 billion people on this planet. And the world will be significantly different. So I want to talk about the beginning. The most minimized aspect of workforce development we have found at UPS is early education. We have a foundation where we give out hundreds of millions of dollars in a decade to support things. Until about the last 6 years, none of our money went into this space. Today, 1/5 of our money goes into it. And if you're into workforce development, typically you're going to play in the college level, you're going to play in the workforce center level. That's where you're going to play. I think it's as important that we understand what's happening in America by looking at the beginning of the process. And so we're going to talk about that for a minute. So the importance of early childhood education on economic growth. Now, most people have not connected the dots here. Most people have not connected the dots here. Oh, they understand the need for development in preschool they understand the need for development in the elementary schools, particularly when it comes down to their own children. Most people don't get jacked up about this unless it's affecting them personally. I'm going to tell you it's affecting you personally now, because it's affecting UPS personally. And as a nation, when you really look at where we are today, the income gap, all those things are outcomes of a root cause. And what we're finding at UPS is that in the communities where we have 1,800 buildings of infrastructure, in the places where we have airline responsibility, Long Beach Gateway, Ontario, Burbank, where I have people that need skills. You know, loading an airplane takes a certain talent. It takes a certain talent to say, I'm going to be the load planner for that 747. Because you're not going to get a college graduate or a community college graduate where I go, hey, what did you study? Loading 747s. Hey, come work for me. No, really. We have to teach our people that. Because we don't go to an aeronautical engineering college and say, hey, you study to be an aeronautical engineer, okay, and those aren't open right now. Why don't you load this plane for me? No, that's not how that works. We have to develop internally the people who load out 747s, MD-11s, 767s with flights going in and out of Asia, into Australia. We do it internally. You know why we do it? There's nowhere we can go get them. There is no one that runs a program that specializes in aircraft handling in transportation. Doesn't exist. Okay, I got your attention? Right. So, and the world is going to become more reliant on those kinds of skills, and they have to start at an early age, right? So let's just look at the first slide. Okay, so how times have changed, and I've already crossed this bridge a little bit. Here is what, in the old days, listening to music looked like. See the kid listening to the radio? Now look at him on his computer with his headphones on. Watching movies. We sat on the couch. Now we're watching on the screen. Chatting with friends was on the phone. Now we do it electronically. Reading the news electronically. Playing music. That's how times have changed. And then, when you were a kid, go to your room. And that was the old days, sitting in the corner, alone. Now, go to your room. It's like, hey, okay, I'm all good with that. Reminds me of my two boys, right? Sending them to their room was not punishment unless you took everything electronic out of it, right? So, in 50 years, what else has changed? 1961. What's the meaning of these marks? See the parents yelling at that kid? Now today, what's the meaning of these marks? Beating up the teachers. They're the enemy. The education system is the enemy. It's terrible, right? So which of these following countries has the lowest high school graduation rate? You're smart enough to know I'm setting you up for this, right? Okay, I mean, seriously, we have a lower high school graduation rate than Russia. We have a lower high school graduation rate than Italy. So why are we okay with that? And we can't say we're not as a country because it is a fact. Those are the numbers. Those are the forensics. So when you look at GDP ranking, we're still number one. So the next number I want you to get your head around is the number of GDP relative importance, right? So I said 791, remember that. Now I want you to remember 95 and 5. 95 and 5. These are weapons for you. These are weapons for you. 95 and 5. Here's what that is. In America, we're 300 million people. I already told you how big is the world, 7 billion. So do the math. We're just over 4% of this planet's people in America. Okay? The global GDP of the world is about $66 trillion. That's all in. That's every country's money. Germany, Australia, Canada, China, India. When you add up all of the GDP, it's 66 trillion. We do 16 or 15. We're at 16 now. Right? This was in 2011. We're just over 16. Bottom line, we're 4.3% of the people in the planet. 95.5, I rounded it up. So we're 5% of the people on the planet, because I rounded it up. 95% of the people on this planet don't live in America. That's the importance of the number. So 95% of the time, a human being doesn't live in America on this planet. Only 5% of the time does a human being on this planet, percent of the population, exist in America. 5%. It's important. $16 trillion of economy is 23% of the money. That's profound. 23% of the money on this planet is in the United States of economic growth. 77% isn't. So we exist at a 4-to-1 ratio on money to the rest of the planet. And we think we have a bad economy. No, we do, right? Everybody's like, oh my gosh, this thing is awful, it's terrible. We need to grow some more. We need more jobs. We need to be bigger. Okay, well, let's do the math on that. This is not my opinion. I am just giving you facts. It's like this table right here is 5 people. I don't know how many are in this conference. So let's say for me, for my ease, let's make it 100. Just to make this simple. You 5 are 5%. They're the other 95%. You 5 make 23% of the money. I have $100. I give you 23 of them. I go to the rest of you and go split it up. And then the country that gets the most is I go to the China table and go, you get this much. And I go to the Japan table and go, you get this much. And I keep going down the list. But you get 23%, period, of the cut. They get the leftovers. You think that any of them are interested in helping you grow your economy? No, really. Let's be honest here. Come on, America. Do you think that I can convince the rest of this room to help you grow more jobs, more stuff? You need 15 pair of shoes because poor you have 12, okay? You have 3 cars. Poor you want a 4th. You think that they're going to be sympathetic to you? That's the real picture in this world. Americans are asleep around this issue, around trade, and around the fact that the only way you get 3 more pair of shoes is if they allow you to sell your F-150 in their country. And Brazil is like, not so much. This is Brazil. This is Brazil. Brazil is like, hey, forget you. You can sell it here, but we're going to tariff it at 100%. That $35,000 truck in your country is going to be 80 grand over here. Have at it. That's real. That's real. That's real. The reason we are where we are today has a lot to do with that picture, not that this is that conference. But it matters to where we go. Because a lot of your children, in order to be successful, I'm just saying, particularly intellectually, if they're college grads, they're going to have to go work in Brazil. They're going to have to go work in Singapore. They're going to have to go work in Korea. Because the kind of opportunities they're going to be educated for are diminishing here. Because you're not getting some more. That's the importance of the conversation. So if you look at where we rank, we're number 1, right? If you look at the top 5 countries, we just talked about it. No shock and awe, right? If you look at student performance, this is math and science. Overall reading, #1 in the world at the time of this printing was Shanghai, China. #2 in the world was South Korea. They're #1 now, just so you know, South Korea. #3 in the world was Finland, 4, Hong Kong, China. The bottom line is, where are we? Are we in the top 5? We're number 17. So let me just help you understand that America, the United States, this group right here, used to be #1 in the world in the smartest, brightest people in the world in 1970, 1971, 1972. #1 in the world in reading, writing, and math. Your children were the smartest in the world. Period. It spawned the creation of Microsoft, Apple. Steve Jobs went to public school. It spawned the greatest innovation era known to mankind. And they made a lot of money. Matter of fact, you get 23% of the cut. And you ever heard that term, fat, dumb, and happy? Well, I'm not trying to insult anyone, but you get the point. It became unimportant to keep what got us there. We're 17th in the world in education. #1 in GDP today. And look at our 4th graders. 4th grade math scores show that we are 12th. Show it there, and show in the 8th grade we're 12th. And who's #1? Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, Japan, Belgium, Netherlands. As a matter of fact, I'll help you quickly. The only countries that place in the top tier, 3rd, of reading, writing, and math in the global GDP are countries in the Netherlands. And there's a reason for that. And I'll point out in a minute, right? And so when you look at 4th grade reading scores or science scale scores, you see that we do a little better here, and we're number 6 for 4th graders. 9th for 8th graders. But where we're not in the #1 GDP in the world is in the top tier as we were. Writing by state. So you can see who ranks #1 in science and achievement levels by state. And you take a look at California on writing. Where are we in the top 20? We're not. Science. Where are we in the top 20? We're not. When you look at achievement levels for 4th grade students, so you see the story. So the real question becomes unemployment and how bad it gets for you. Is it connected to education? We know the obvious. Okay, and when you look at unemployment, at least at this point, you can also see, well, North Dakota is now not #1 because the oil industry died. So all those jobs in North Dakota, we spent a lot of money and time at UPS adding capacity in North Dakota because of fracking. Well, it was going crazy, right? Kind of reminded us of the mining industry in Australia a little bit. Very low to little education, high wages, $80,000, $90,000 a year. That has a lifespan, and it did, and it blew up. But in any event, you see unemployment rates for the U.S. at the time when the economy was just trying to come out of the recession, right? So I just want to talk about the 85-15 rule. The first 15% of the way something is done will determine how the last 85% turns out. You can Google that. It's called the 85-15 rule. And what that means is, I'll give you an example of building a house. You know, can you build the foundation of a house, the very first thing, and make it crooked, even by 3 inches, and you get a good foundation? Absolutely not. That's just obvious, right? You know, the fact of the matter is that what happens in a person's life in the beginning is critical to what happens to them at the later stage. So if we expect to have a strong economy, a strong workforce, and a strong country, then we probably need to pay a lot of attention to how we put in the first board. And the first board of a workforce is early education, is when they are young, when they're in their adolescent years, even to the point where in Finland, Denmark, Sweden, the countries in the Netherlands, preschool is required at the age of 2. Like, if you try not to educate your child when they're 5, 6, and 7, if you say, well, my kid just isn't going to go to school. They're my kid. I'm not putting them in the 2nd grade. And no, I'm not homeschooling them. And no, they're not going to learn. You will lose your children. It's not a choice you have. It affects what we become as a country. That's why education was formalized at the turn of the century, from a farming community to an industrialized community. That's why truancy laws emerged. It was because the nation wasn't going to allow parent choice to interfere with national growth. Countries like Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, they get that. It's obvious that countries like Hong Kong, South Korea, and China get that. In America, where we struggle is our system is infecting us in a way, according to the data, where we have now fallen so far out of where we need to be educationally, we're not producing the collateral we're going to need in the future. That's it. That's the relevance of the comment. So if we don't have 15% of our college students studying engineering, and we expect that we need 10,000 engineers, but we don't even have them in the beginning, then the answer is going to be that sometime later we think we can solve that. You have to solve it in the front end. And the same thing with knowledge, with a child, right? And when people are educated, highly educated, innovation occurs. When innovation occurs, new technologies emerge. When new technology emerges, it requires a higher aptitude, and higher aptitudes require education. And we're not going to get the country that we've known in our lifetimes by figuring out how to create jobs for uneducated people. And understand, I'm not insulting anyone. What I'm saying is we're going to have the economy we want when we're creating systems that create people with educations who can work for UPS and load plan a 747. Or go to Amazon and build out a warehouse because they understand warehouse velocity. That's where we're going to be successful. And if they don't have the reading, writing, and math skills in the 4th grade, the evidence says they will not have them in the 10th grade. That's what the evidence says. So our nation cannot expect to train our children for the high-skilled jobs of the day or for the opportunities of the future without investments in a world-class education system. Early childhood education, one of the best investments our country can make. And every time you stop a school, you have to build a jail. What you gain at one end, you lose at the other. It's like feeding a dog its own tail. It won't fatten the dog. I was chairman of the board of the LA Chamber of Commerce in 2014. And I took about 60 members of the chamber, business people like me, and I said, hey, team, listen, we need to understand the negative impact of incarceration on education. And we did that. We went to the jail. We went to the jail. I said, we're going to jail. They were like, wow, Noel, you're being kind of demanding. I said, yeah. So we go there, and we see all these prisoners that are in jail, and they're 20, and 21 and 22. And let me tell you what was one of the biggest mind-blowing experiences for us in that jail. Who the prisoners were. You know, they weren't like gangbangers and, you know, with the tattoos and, you know, you think you're going to walk in there and be, you know, like, hey, is somebody going to protect me from the gangs? Right? I mean, hey, I'm just being honest, right? We were like, okay. So we went in there at the request of an organization called ARC, Anti-Recidivism Coalition, founded by Scott Budnick, the producer of the movies called The Hangovers. He produced all those movies. And so he works with young people that are incarcerated and shouldn't be because they made mistakes that got them in jail, like selling drugs, right, or something. And that was 90% of the story, right? So there were college students, and they were in jail. And the guy was like, this is how I was paying for my degree. I got caught. We're paying 80 grand a year for him to sit there. Okay, so the whole point of the visit was, let's be logical about this with our dollars, right? So can we do something with someone who sold cocaine, non-violent, non-sex-based crimes? Can we do something to not spend 80 grand a year on them because we got a problem with spending enough money in schools, right? So that was the purpose of the visit, and that was enlightening. But the point is we have to think about those things differently today as a society if we want a different outcome. And so the point that I wanted to make with my couple of minutes here was this. I could have sat up here and told you, well, at UPS, we're looking for technologists. Everybody's looking for that. At UPS, we're looking for people who can read and write because we have accounting jobs open. You know, okay, that's not real sexy. It just wasn't going to take you anywhere. You weren't going to walk away from that with something important. Here's all I'm saying. What we're doing today with our young people in your communities, in the theaters where you're important, in the preschool, in the elementary school, is important to what you end up looking like in 10 years. And the governor of this state, who I've spoken to many times, where we have visits to D.C. and we do the thing we do, and we go, or to Sacramento, or we go to D.C. and do the thing we do and speak to the Education Council as a chair of the chamber, or chamber member, or the boards I sit on. We do that for a reason. And it has nothing to do with helping UPS grow one single nickel of profit today. Nothing. It takes, like today, I'm here. I'm not managing, you know, Amazon's business today, or McKesson's business, or Amgen, all right? I'm not doing that today. I'm here. And I'm here because materially, we're all in this together. Materially, what's important to Boeing, what's important to Apple, what's important to UPS, what's important to Raytheon, what's important is that we have a workforce that can actually do the kinds of things necessary in 20 years. And you're going to be the architects of that. And I would submit that the closer you get to the story, the more you're going to realize that what we're doing with young people is going to hurt the end. We will not be able to compete educationally. Your children will not be able to compete educationally in a globalized economy in the current way that we do this. And if you think, it's like me, I can look at my two sons, 20 and 22, and one's a junior in college, one graduated pre-med, and think the world is okay. Well, not really, because it costs like 200 grand each. And we're asking kids to graduate today with what you would have had to have as a mortgage to get an education. And we think that it's just capitalist business, right? And maybe it is. And maybe that's what the group wants. Maybe that's what the team thinks is great. But if we're going to have 50% fewer doctors in 2025 than we have today, then how are we going to do that? If we're going to have 50% fewer engineers than what we actually need, then here's what we're going to do. And I'm going to end with this. So America, you kind of let this thing go sideways, and now half your kids are graduating, and We need 10,000 engineers, and you just produce 3,000. Because you got so much money, you don't think it matters. Okay, whatever. So we're going to go over here. Say, hey, Brazil, how many extra engineers you got? We got a few hundred. All right, work visa. Okay, what about you? India, how many you got? Work visa. Okay, thank you. Okay, hey, Singapore, #1 in the world. Engineers, help us out. And so here's what we do. Now this is going to be this might sting somebody in this room. I don't mean to do that, but yeah, I do. Here's the deal. So here's what we do. Your son graduated from high school with a 4.0 and applied to UCLA. That's good. Okay, we're giving the chair to that Brazilian. Because they pay 50 grand to go here. 20 grand in state, sorry. We got a revenue plan. That's what we've come down to. That's how we view education. Ask Janet Napolitano, right? She's trying to fix that. Okay, the bottom line is, okay, this is the system we're creating. And everyone wants to put their head in the sand. You know why I can't? This is not for moral reasons. Some of it is. But at the end of the day, it's about need. It's about need. We're not able to fill the need today in America. If you talk to the CEOs of UPS, of Raytheon, of Coke, of Boeing, and you say, hey, highly educated workers, do we have enough? And they're going to go, absolutely not. And do they have the right skills? They're going to go, even worse, no. So how are you going to fill that out? Well, I guess we got to go to Singapore. That's real. And I see it unfolding. And so if you want to talk about why I'm here today, I think you get the point. This matters. I'm not anti-international country. 95%, I'm not anti-you. I'm just extremely pro this. Right? And I'm really, really passionate about what we get our children and how we're seeing that. We're responsible for this. My two sons, and finally, this is my last word, seriously. My two sons beat me up. Oh, they're millennials. They're 20 and 22, okay? And so when we get into debates politically and the elections going on, they go, hey, you guys screwed this up. No, they just said that last weekend. They said, Dad, you guys screwed this thing up. Now the global warming, the ocean's going to be all on top of us in 30 years. We got to pay the debt. You got like, you know, $18 trillion of debt. And who's going to pay for that? And they go, you guys are leaving that up to us. That's messed up. Quote, unquote. No, really, my junior in college. He goes, that's messed up. You know what I have to say to that? I go, hey, son, well, I'm sure you guys will get it done. Thank you.
Thank you so much.